about him, so we're not really going to spend a ton of time on him here. But he dealt with humanism and the fact that he said that every human goes through a hierarchy of needs and deals with personality because the end goal is self-actualization, meaning the end goal is to be the best version of yourself in the capacity that you can be. And he would simply say that this promotes healthy behavior and not just psychological symptoms because it gives you like an order. It shows you, it kind of prioritizes things. And again, you guys can look back at Maslow's pyramid, talking about like love and belongingness, safety, health needs, and again, eventually getting to emotional needs and self actualization. And so again, that would focus on the human because it focuses on each person. Each person's self-actualization is considerably different than somebody else's. Now, critics of humanists, well, some feel that their ideas of self-actualization are hard to define operationally and measure accurately because, again, everyone's completely different. How do you measure if someone's actually achieved their peak? Is it their viewpoint of achieving their peak is, or is it somebody else's viewpoint of achieving their peak? And in most cases, what ends up happening is people are trying to figure out, like, okay, I think this person's met their peak, but in the end, it kind of comes down to the individual's eyes. Did they meet their own peak or not? Some feel that their views of human beings inherently good are too optimistic, meaning it's just a little too positive. Because we as Christians would look at this and say, yeah, this is where we disagree with them because human beings are not inherently good. We're filled with sin. And so that's where some of those viewpoints would be inaccurate as well. Positive psychology is the study of human virtues such as wisdom, altruism, which is like doing something good for somebody else just for the sake of doing something good, justice, and courage. And positive psychology would also kind of, in some ways, look at humanism and say we're kind of okay with it. And they would call it positive psychology because you're trying to focus on the good of people. These psychologists would sit down and say, it's not necessarily your fault, it's other people's faults. And they would try to get you to understand that it was somebody else's issue, not necessarily yours. And that would be another criticism of humanism, is it blames other people and doesn't make you take full responsibility for your actions on occasion. All right, let's move on to Roman number 4. Quick summary of the behaviorist theories of personality. They would assume that behavior is learned and it is not innate, meaning it's something that is not built inside of you. It's something that you learn. It's something that you model. And so you would act, your personality would act in a way because your parents acted a certain way when you were young, or your friends did, or your aunts and uncles did, whoever you hung out with a lot. And John Watson was a behaviorist. We've talked about him in several different occasions. But he believed that he could make a child into any sort of person if he had complete control over the child's environment. What he's stating there is environment is key. A behaviorist would focus on the environment, and a behaviorist would focus on the fact that these kids, these individuals, are only going to know what is they're only going to know how to act based on what they see around other people. And so that would be one of the things. So basically thinking if you wanted to have control over a kid's environment, then you could make them really like anything. But again, the key would be complete control, and that's almost impossible. B.F. Skinner said each new experience helps to determine a person's future responses. So you act a certain way because of something that happened previous in your life. A new experience of you interacting with a snake would help determine the person's future responses of dealing with a snake. If you had a positive experience, I'm not really sure if there is such a thing, but if you had a positive experience with dealing with a snake, then it would determine a person's future responses within that. Behavior is the result of reinforcements and punishments. We've talked about that before, meaning if you reinforce in a kid's mind good behavior, or you punish bad behavior, then they're going to associate those type of things as they grow up, and their behavior will be based on reinforcement and or punishments. The social cognitive theory of personality, their view would explain how personal characteristics, social interactions, and cognitive evaluations are involved in developing a person's individual's personality. So personal characteristics meaning what you have, what you bring to the table. Social interactions meaning you talking with other people. And cognitive evaluations, like how you think of things, are involved in developing an individual's personality. Albert Bandura, we have talked about him before. Um, Reciprocal determinism. Reciprocal meaning giving something back to someone. And what he said is this: how people think, how people behave, and what their environment is like all interact to influence the consistency of behavior. So think of it like this: if you are interested in tennis, you will consistently choose to play or watch tennis. Why? Because you are behaving and you will put yourself in an environment that likes to interact with those who like tennis. You watch tennis. You talk about tennis. You try out for the tennis team. You buy tennis brand clothing. Um, and so what it does is it interacts to influence the consistency of your behavior. And so what he's saying is the theory kind of states that personal or cognitive, behavioral, and environmental variables continuously interact with one another to influence your personality. So if you're like into like skating or you're like skateboarding, you would wear like Vans and you would watch like Tony Hawk videos. Or if you are into basketball, you would watch the NBA TV, you would watch college basketball, you would wear, Nike gear, you would wear like, Kobe Bryant would have been your favorite player back in the day. That's just kind of how you continuously interact with the different things. If you like back in the day in the 90s, I liked grunge music. Late 90s, early 2000s, I really liked grunge music. So what did I do? I tried to dress and act a certain way. I listened to him. I try to have that attitude. That's what he's saying with reciprocal determinism. What I put out is kind of what I'm getting back into it. Self-efficacy is also something he talked about. This is the level of confidence an individual has regarding their ability to perform particular skills. What we're saying is this: do you believe that you can perform the task or skill that you are taking on? If you do, you have what he calls a high self-efficacy, meaning you're effective. That's the word effective there. If you have high self-efficacy for a particular task, you believe that success is possible and are more likely to continue to pursue goals when setbacks occur, and you accomplish what you set out to do. This is opposed to those with low self-efficacy, meaning if you don't think you can tackle the task, then you probably won't continue to pursue goals. And when a setback happens, you'll just kind of give up. But a person with high self-efficacy, if they meet roadblocks, they're going to try to conquer it because they believe that success is possible, and they really truly feel like they can actually invest themselves into those scenarios. George Kelly, he said that we create personal constructs. And again, just scrolling back up here, this is social cognitive. This is basically saying like how you think, how your personal characteristics, how you think, and social interactions with other people, how it makes you believe, and how it creates your personality. George Kelly said we create personal constructs. These are concepts that individuals help create to help them predict or explain their experience. If a personal construct comes true, it will be reinforced. And so in a way, they kind of come up with like behavioralists here. If not, they will be reversed. Let me give an example. Okay, this will help you with your personal construct idea. If you meet your boss for the first time and believe that they are smart, then you will label them as intelligent. If the boss continues to act in the I'm sorry, let me fix this. If the boss continues to act, let me fix this here. Okay, sorry, one more second. Sorry, I'm going to do this kind of on the fly here. If the boss continues to act in that way, then you will use that construct to predict future behavior of your boss. Meaning, again, if you think for the first time you meet your boss, wow, this person's smart, and the boss continues to fulfill that, that is the personal construct that you will have to predict the future behavior and explain your experience with your boss. If the first time you meet your boss and you're like, man, this dude's an idiot. I mean, I can't believe how dumb he is. And then they continue to act that way, then you will use that personal construct and label that boss as an idiot. And it will be able to predict your behavior, because then all of a sudden what you do is you say later on, if you know a scenario is going to happen, well, this is how the boss is going to react because, well, they're an idiot. Now, constructs are highly, highly individual, which means that a person with long hair and tattoos might be placed in the construct of dangerous by some and interesting by others. So, what we mean by they're highly individual, what we're saying is it depends on you. I might have a personal construct for somebody, and just from what I see from them, and that same person, let's say that I have a personal construct about Wyatt, and I really like Wyatt. I think Wyatt's a good dude, and I like the fact that he, watches a lot of movies and knows music. And then one of you guys, let's say that Bobby has a bad experience with Wyatt, and so therefore his personal construct of Wyatt is a bad one, and my personal construct is a good one. It just depends on the individual. So, again, what it would mean is that these personal constructs really kind of influence your behavior. And that's why we would say that it does deal with if you go back up here to the social and cognitive theory, social interactions and cognitive evaluations. So, my social interaction with these individuals does have a very big impact on how people act. Last one today, Julian Rotter. This is cool. Investigated how differences in personality were related to an individual's perceived control over the environment. So basically, your personality determines how much control you have over your environment, over your scenarios. And he talked about a phrase called locus of control. And what he said with this is the amount of confidence people have regarding the level of influence or control they believe they have over the events in their lives. That's locus of control. So basically what he's saying is, do you believe that you have a lot of control around with your environment and the events that happen in your life, or do you feel like you're kind of in the back seat and just watching? Those who have an internal locus of control, these are people that believe they are capable of influencing what happens to them through their hard work and their effort. So, like, again, I use a lot of sports analogies, so if you guys don't like sports, my apologies. It just helps me understand things. But if you have a high internal locus of or an internal locus of control, then you're looking at it going, man, if I become a better ball handler, if I become a better shooter, a better passer, play better defense, then I'm going to help my team win the game. But if you look at it as an external locus of control, those are those who believe that what happens to them may be largely determined by fate, luck, or the actions of others. So you would go into a basketball season going, you know what? I think everybody else, it's pretty much determined. God kind of knows what, he's going to have happen. Or if you don't believe in God, maybe you would say, well, as fate would have it or as luck would have it. So I don't really need to work on dribbling or whatever. If I'm supposed to be playing on the team and I'm supposed to make the team and get a lot of playing minutes, then you know what? I'll be that way. The coach will give me minutes. I don't really need to practice. That's an external locus of control. That person believes that they do not have a lot of control over the events of their lives. Internal locus of control means they can influence their environment. So as Christians, what would you look at it? Well, we would say this. Obviously, God is sovereign, but we do have a responsibility to work hard. He has asked us to do that in the Bible. And so, in a way, Christians kind of have a little bit of an internal locus of control, but they also have some external locus of control. But again, it just kind of depends on your viewpoint of this. And what this could do is this could totally affect your personality. If you are a person who wants to control their environment, they go out there, they study, they work hard in sports, they work hard in their arts, academics, whatever it could be, because you feel like you control your own fate. If not, you walk into a classroom, the teacher's going to kind of treat me how they're going to treat me. I'm going to get the grade that I'm going to get, and that's all it is. So that's the difference between internal and external locus of control. We don't have time to finish Walter Mischel. We'll get to him tomorrow.